everybody, it's Holger Mueller here live from the place where I never go rarely, the Las Vegas airport. Welcome to CRTV show. What's the number?
This has got to be like episode 50 or like 100. Aren't we like 150?
48 is now cheap.
48. I kind of don't believe it because it feels like we've already done like 19 episodes, 48. But Holger is in probably one of the most exotic locales for any analyst. I mean, we never go there. It's someplace you want to go take a tour. Maybe one of those double-decker buses.
On the walkway.
Yeah, he's on the walkway. He's coming in literally live from the ground, but more importantly, he is on his way to, yet another event. But most importantly, we got the news.
Well, I think the news writers are taking a break because not much is happening, right? We had good earnings calls last week, right? Everybody who does infrastructure for the cloud, Sumo Logic is doing well, GitLab is doing well, so are doing well, growing and really doing an amazing job, totally recession-proof. But then there's some interesting things happening on the CEO, co-CEO debate, right? With something long-term which we have gone on this, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think. Yeah, earnings have been really good. I mean, I think it's kind of surprised people, which I think is a little bit mean because I think earnings throughout the year have been good and then everyone's stock takes a tank overnight and then recovers a couple days later. But, the market's the market. I think the interesting thing that's going on is we're probably going to see a couple more big pickups between now and the end of the year as people have a little more cash on hand. Holger, there's a player in your space and certainly looking at things like cash management. Thoma Bravo picked up Coupa.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, right? The PE guys still have money to spend from their funds which they've raised, and that's certainly a big part. It's kind of like, it's an interesting time from my perspective. My last corporate job was at a PE-owned company, right? So I got some insights from that. It was KKR, actually, looking up on LinkedIn. And I actually, as a product builder, I like the PE investment of saying, like, you have a long-term time frame to get your product, make an attractive product, listen to your customers, do the right thing. There's other positions on that in the industry, of course, saying these are the bloodsuckers, take the lifeblood out, only selling things and so on. But I think it's a good time right now because we face this disruption on the stack, right? You see that for the cloud-based providers on the lower level, what are they going to do there? There's no acquisition there, but on the PaaS layer, there's going to be lots of activity. Who's going to be the infrastructure PaaS player of the future? And the SaaS layer, it's massive because the best practices, as I keep saying, on the 21st century have not been established yet. How to use what I call the infinite compute of the cloud, right? So how many forecasts, how much AI could it be today, would you use today? And these best practices still have to be figured out. So standard software can become standard software again, and that's a massive transformation for the standard software vendors.
Yeah, I love it. And I think a lot of big organizations that we would normally kind of expect to see that big pickup, the big splashy pickup, probably would have happened, last quarter before all their events and before their earnings. But you're right. I think PE firms are kind of looking around being like, now is the time to really have that good pickup so they start to see that momentum going into 2023. I think it's interesting when we start to see, numbers like, so Thoma Bravo picked up Coupa for $8 billion. We're still seeing that B at the end of those big firms. Like we're still seeing those big numbers, but even some things that we saw from Constellation's own CXO confidence survey, there are folks out there that are really thinking, hey, 2023 is going to be a rough year. So I think it's going to be some interesting ways things play out. I mean, I think the big news in my world for over the past, week or so, and I think we're still seeing the ramifications and the ripples play out, is there have been some executive moves at Salesforce, right? So you have seen what many felt was like this really big bombshell shock in Brett Taylor announcing that he would be leaving the firm at the end of January. You've also had other very notable and high-profile executives also putting in their papers. You have folks like Stuart Butterfield leaving the firm as the co-founder and founder and CEO of Slack. So I think that it's been this really interesting time where this happens. I think we forget that this happens right around this time every year, especially for really large enterprises that have to report all of their stock and all of their executive stock into the SEC. You start to see these papers go in this December time period. You start to see people leaving in January. And so it always feels really shocking to the system. But I think that in this case, what is really interesting here is that, especially in the case with Butterfield, there was clearly a succession plan in place. These decisions started being made, 6 months, 7 months ago. And Stuart's heading into a really exciting time in his life. He's got a kid on the way. He's, going to enjoy that life and enjoy the fruits of his labor. And so I wish him the best. I mean, this is the last we're going to see of him. I certainly say that of Brett Taylor. Brett Taylor has weathered, he's had one heck of a 2022. He not only saw Salesforce through some really impressive replatforming, some re-architecting, some really impressive growth. He got Salesforce to that next evolutionary phase where it needed to be. And Holger, I know that you talk about this a lot of, how Salesforce needed to change, how they needed to adjust everything from their architecture to platform to be ready for that next stage. I think Brett has really pushed them to that point. And so, but at his core, at his DNA, he's an entrepreneur, right? But I think a lot of people are going to bring this up as an opportunity to talk about that co-CEO model, right? And I think we're seeing a lot of people say, it doesn't work, oh my gosh, it's horrible. And I think that, for me, I look at it, I actually really liked the Brett Taylor, Mark Benioff, like that combination of them as co-CEO. It was like this big wild dreamer who's, he's slapping bunny ears on his head in the middle of Dreamforce. And then there was Taylor, like this engineer, and he had that mindset. He's like, you dream it, I'm going to build it. And it felt like that really nice kind of co-partnership. But, a lot of folks are pointing out, hey, this is not the first time Mark Benioff has had a co-CEO. So how many more times are we going to go through this? And is it a matter of maybe one of the co's being too big, having too much a vision, wanting to push forward? Who do people answer to? Where do people look? We don't understand how all of this goes through. So I think there's a lot of folks kind of touting the downside of the co-CEO.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely interesting. So quickly, let's unpack it a little bit, right? On the architecture side, absolutely right? There's a genius in the way of what Genie is doing, and it's putting Salesforce for the first time since I covered them, since 10 years, on something where I'm optimistic about the future. They can see a clear roadmap, building on a data lake, building the next generation of CRM, using AI in the public cloud, being able to migrate their customers, right? We see how much SAP struggles to migrate their customers over to the next generation. Most people don't know, but the classic Salesforce infrastructure, architecture, and setup is in the database. If I have a tool to move the database, including the setup tables, all of a sudden I could run the cloud. So very, very powerful stuff happening there. The thing which I think happened there is that the perspective for Brett Taylor, who's been his hands in the like button and the Google Maps capabilities and so on, he wanted to build a new thing, and the horizon of building CRM was put, the next generation CRM was probably a little bit too long, right? And that's the challenge of the co-CEO relationships. You have setups where there's peers, true peers. You've seen that at SAP a long time. You've seen that for a long time at Oracle. That model was unfortunately only ended because Mark Hurt is no longer with us, right? A very successful co-CEO model. And then you have the senior-junior partnership, right? And the difficulty in the senior-junior partnership is obviously Salesforce had. And by the way, much, much better chemistry than the Benioff-Block relationship, as we said. It reminds me actually how it was at Dreamforce, wasn't it? A little like Parker Harris and Mark, right? So
it was
technical guy, whatever. It reminded me. I had like some deja vu from that perspective. So, but in the senior-junior part, it's very important the junior knows when I'm going to take over. And I'm not sure if that was also set up as much as then you've been before that on the record saying he doesn't want to do this forever, he wants to retire. But letting go of things, which I can relate to, is not that easy of a thing.
Yeah.
Right? And so the time frame expectation of Taylor versus what Mark was probably let go, and building CRM, the next generation CRM, which for me would be super motivation to do whatever. We'll see what Brett Taylor does. Maybe I say, yeah, I understand why you left for that. But that would be super interesting, but it takes a long time. It's going to be 3, 4, 5 year journey with no guarantee to be right. And that's the other thing you have to think of for someone who's in his 40s like Brett Taylor. I don't want to be disassociated with failure in my mid-40s, because then my product builder resume renovation is not that good, right? And I always know clear that the established players, not just Salesforce, will have the handle on what the next generation of their automation area is. And last but not least, absolutely right, succession planning, right? Love it from an HR practitioner perspective, right? We saw that in place, right? We had the analyst call. Typically, when an executive leaves, like an analyst, Salesforce analyst call, and yeah, Butterfield was on, and his successor was on, right? So,
Lidiane
that's
was
how
there,
it should
and
be.
she's no slouch, right? Like Lidiane, like she knows Salesforce, she knows the product. I have no doubt that this was the right that right plan, and that was there, and they've clearly been working together. I think the curveball, when people do and engage in succession planning, you kind of always have to have those curveball, like what's going to come out of the blue and potentially disrupt that near term, long term. I mean, their curveball was named Brett. He came in hot, right? Like, there's no doubt that came in out of the blue for everyone.
And actually, from a pure product strategy, as Salesforce wants to embed Salesforce wants to embed Slack into more of its transactional products. Why not make a successful GM of the transactional products of marketing, commerce, and charge of Slack, because they have the ties, connections, the understanding of that. At the same time, I was thinking about this. I would not like to use whoever's in charge of sales and service, because they have so many lift and shift and next generation thinking to do because of the cash cows. So I have a talented person on marketing, commerce, by all means. Mr. Butterfield, keep him, find the next new thing. And then we go back to this, is the next new thing interesting for Mr. Butterfield at Salesforce? And probably it was not.
And, I also have to say that there's a whole lot of talk about people saying, where is that intersection point between CX and EX, right? And you and I laugh about it all the time. Well, now there's a more direct exploration of that from someone who has seen both sides of that equation. So I think Lidiane Jones as that successor, I think is that's a really interesting conversation in and of itself. But I think that where we are right now is that Salesforce has a deep bench. They have proven that even just with the Slack change. I think for Brett, there is a difference, and with Taylor's concerned, there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and being entrepreneurial within a very large enterprise. And I think the challenge with being as the co-CEO of Salesforce is you can be entrepreneurial within that large machine, but that's very different from being an entrepreneur. So I think time will tell. But the one thing I do know, Holger, we're out of time on the news, my friend. So here's what we're going to do next. So thank you guys for all tuning in, because the drum rolls are about to really happen. We are going to join up with the rest of our analyst colleagues here at Constellation, and you guys are going to hear who we have identified as the 2022 Enterprise Award winners. It is that time of year, everyone. It is time for Constellation's annual issuing of the Enterprise Software Awards. We go through the best. We go through the worst. And we talk about all the things in between. And it is this group in the Brady Bunch who got to talk about all the highs and lows of 2022. So let's go ahead and kick it off with our first category being Best Enterprise Startup of the Year.
Best startup, DBT Labs. They have emerged as a leading option for data transformation, collaboration, and data warehouse pipeline development. Launched in 2016, they've seen huge adoption by organizations who want to harness trusted data, used by more than 50,000 data and analytics professionals. They've got a who's who list of partners now with data warehouse platforms and analytics vendors. And in 2022, they had a $222 million D round, and they had participation from both Databricks and Snowflake. So if DBT can get two fierce rivals to agree on them, good on them. Go DBT Labs.
Sounds like the collaboration and getting frenemies all in the pool, that wins them right off the bat. So good for them. And who knows, maybe that trait carries into our next category, being the best enterprise software vendor. Holger.
And the winner and best enterprise software vendor for our awards this year is Oracle. Quite a surprise from some, not for everybody. Why Oracle? Let's go for the stack. On the SaaS layer, Oracle has the best and most integrated ERP suite and probably the strongest integrated HCM product and a competitive SCM product. Let's go one level down. On database level, the Oracle database is not dead, and the contrary is adding JSON document support, and Oracle is no longer a one database company, which used to be a non-thinkable thing before with the HeatWave offering, where they're bringing the offering to the other clouds. For instance, HeatWave is available on Amazon's cloud. And last but not least, people were saying Oracle's not going to make it, like many other of the old guard tech vendors, as Amazon likes to call them, who will not make it to the cloud. Oracle's cloud infrastructure is doing really well, as just documenting the recent inclusion in the JWCC, the Department of Defense cloud deal, with the other three big guys. So congratulations to Oracle.
All right, congratulations, Oracle. Next up, Diane, who got the best enterprise services vendor this year?
Well, and to give us the drum roll here, the winner for the Enterprise Services Award for 2022 is Infosys. Why they win? They had a truly amazing year. The Indian services giant has actually a few amazing years in a row. The pandemic was hard on a lot of services companies, but Infosys really managed to turn things around by focusing on the well-being of its employees. They also bet heavily on the rise of the cloud, and that's really paid off for them, both in terms of revenue, but also in terms of valuable IP that sets it apart from its competitors, with over 300 industry solutions and 35,000 cloud IP assets that they can use with new clients, and very appealing and differentiating services. And they've really invested in their employees, and they have a custom-built and exemplary learning and upskilling platform known as Springboard, that's allowed it to rapidly onboard and make effective new hires, which has really helped grow the company, because the workforce is the lifeblood of services companies. And the result is nothing short of remarkable: a doubling of headcount over 4 years to over 320,000 workers today. Growth has come as cloud, artificial intelligence, and now ESG forms a rapidly increasing share of revenue. They've grown a whopping 18% in just the last quarter. So props to Infosys and some really outstanding work in developing the organization.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to take this next one. Best tech acquisition. There were a lot of eyes this year, but hands down, we have given this top spot to Adobe and their very wise acquisition of Figma. On the surface, this really feels like going in and identifying where competition and where, quite frankly, new market and where new opportunity exists. And Adobe smelled that in the water and went and got it. But that's really just the surface. It's really interesting to understand when you start to look at the new collaboration of work that is going to occur across both creativity, across marketing, across engagement. We're now seeing a very different definition of how this collaboration can happen when you look at the three solutions that Adobe has pulled together, being Workfront, Figma, and Frame.io. This really is bringing together the entire continuum of engagement and creativity into that one view. It's also opening up a really important product category that Adobe really has not had a big play in, that being product development. So when you start to look at how digital products are actually coming together, how a lot of 3D models, how new video, new formats that are going to, yes, be the media backbone of the metaverse, Adobe has now really brought together a very different set of solutions. So for this year's award, I mean, best acquisition, got to give it up to Adobe and Figma. So what comes after the best tech acquisition? Of course, the worst. Andy, what you got?
Well, there were not that many acquisitions last year, at least that will fall in this category. So, after looking at it closely, I think it's the Broadcom VMware acquisition. Broadcom is obviously known to buy software companies, sort of increase prices, decrease the quality of support, and kill innovation by those companies. I can give you a lot of examples, CAs being one, Semantics being another one. A merger with a hyperscaler would have been a great play for VMware. Or even a hybrid player such as IBM Red Hat, or would have been a great acquisition for VMware. Broadcom already stated that they are going to improve the VMware profit from 4.7 billion to 8.5 billion in just 3 years. That's doubling the profit. It's going to come at a cost, I would assume, of their customers. The cloud adoption has slowed down VMware business considerably. Combined with the constantly shifting priorities, as you all know, VMware went from EMC to Dell, now to Broadcom, so things keep changing, the mothership. It's hard to imagine a chip company would have a good strategic direction for a slowing down virtualization software company. So in my books, Broadcom VMware is not a good acquisition.
We're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to go from acquisitions to partnerships. Doug, who had the best partnership record this year?
Everybody with AWS. It's everybody's favorite partner in 2022. And it's not AWS doing this great diplomacy. It's everybody beating down AWS's door. The obvious Willie Sutton reason, the world's largest public cloud, that's where the money is. So top drawer list, Accenture, Atos, IBM, Salesforce led the list of prominent vendors that partnered with AWS in a big way in 2022. These sorts of partnerships are never exclusive, but it's very clear that the biggest bets are being placed on AWS.
It really was. Like at reInvent, it was like, and here's a partner, and here's a partner, and hey, we're going to partner with AWS. No, we're a partner with AWS. It was a little bit of an arm wrestle there. So I'm liking that category a lot. Okay, Doug, I'm going to put you back on the spot just for a second. Best enterprise CEO.
Well, that would have to be Thomas Kurian of Google Cloud. Before he arrived, Google Cloud was kind of foundering. It was failing to connect with the enterprise market. But he quickly righted the ship. He's been there almost 3 years now. But in 2022, Google Cloud clearly emerged as a legit alternative for the enterprise. Part of the change has been streamlining and stitching together the portfolio of services. Another part has been the emphasis on openness, partnerships with a who's who list of prominent third-party vendors. The next step will be executing on and delivering on the vertical cloud offerings that they kind of innovated with, and also the enterprise deployments at scale. We've seen market share gains. Now we're going to see those enterprise contracts turn into successful deployment. But given Kurian's reputation for discipline, we really expect to see follow through on Kurian's clearer vision for Google Cloud.
Congratulations to Google Cloud and Thomas Kurian. I'm loving it. Okay. With great examples like that of where CEOs are taking their organizations, we got to talk about new enterprise categories because they're popping up, it feels like, every day. Andy,
Well, so this is in my view, a pretty big innovation. I mean, we're going to look back in about 10, maybe 20 years saying that, oh, that was the moment, that's the year everything changed. This is like a light bulb moment. I think it's generative AI, my favorite topic. Generative AI, in my view, is the most promising AI as of now. This is when the lab experiments move into the real life scenarios and use cases. But AI moves to a level where it can be equal to humans in many aspects. People have always measured AI saying that, can it pass the Turing test? Then I will consider that to be equal to human. It would be the ultimate test for any AI, and this is as close as it comes to measuring against it.
You get that we're all going to go ask it to put you on the moon, right? Like, you get that.
Hey, with some air, please.
It won this category, so it's going to happen, Andy. Sorry, bud, you're going to the moon, maybe to Mars, but you can send home a report from there, bud. Listen, thanks for that, Andy. That's awesome. Listen, to Andy's point earlier, there were some limited acquisitions, but there were even more limited IPOs. So, Ray, this was a tough one to narrow down.
You know what? This was the worst IPO market in 20 years. I mean, they barely raised $6 billion in IPO funds, but one of the winners was the autonomous driving spin-out from Intel. It's Mobileye. It's the crown jewel. Their IQ computer vision process chip is the one that was kicked it up. They basically started in 2014 with 2.7 million chips, and they're forecasted to get to even more when we look at it. They're basically hitting a whole bunch of categories that sit on tech, autonomous vehicles, and ESG. But the most important thing is they expect to get to 54 million chips by 2030. And that's been pretty crazy. The stock has held despite all the chaos in the market. And overall, the fiscal year 2022 revenue is going to hit between $1.831 billion to $1.849 billion. I mean, that's huge given what's going on in this market.
Love it. Love it. Okay, this comes up to some of my favorite categories now. Best software marketing of 2022. This one goes to UKG. UKG actually had a really big marketing challenge in front of it. You take two known, well-loved, respected companies and turn them into one. That is never an easy brand proposition. It is never an easy marketing proposition. But UKG really came into its own this year in 2022. They had some great campaigns. They had some great taglines. Making Mondays feel like Fridays has been a great theme that it has carried out throughout its marketing. The important thing to note here is that this transformation into UKG Group had to be held across their digital platforms. It had to go across their event platforms. This is the first time they actually held a combined event live and in person. Holger, I know that you were there and you were a big fan of the effect. So for their marketing campaigns, listen, we're giving them the nod because that is a very, very heavy load to carry across a year for marketing. We're going to jump into best new enterprise ad campaign of the year. Boom! It goes to Salesforce. Listen, it is really hard. I'm going to admit it. If I'm an enterprise software marketer, I'm like, do I really want to go up against the Salesforce marketing and ad machine? This year, it was really tough because they had literal star power brought into their creative deployment. But Salesforce wins for their campaign that they're referring to as Team Earth. It is a partnership that they are doing with Matthew McConaughey, where he is coming up with some pretty hysterical ads and some jabs at folks who really want to spend all their time in space. So their ads included their launch with their Super Bowl ad called The New Frontier, and then now, most recently, an ad that's launched called The March. This advertising really does a couple things. It not only talks to its customers and Salesforce's customer base about all the new things that you can actually create and build and create those sustainable mindsets with the campaigns here on Earth. But it's also a really great employee rallying cry, and they've really been using it as that, starting with Team Earth, starting at the epicenter of Salesforce itself. So best ad campaign of the year goes to Salesforce and a little bit to Matthew McConaughey. So, if he wants to give us a shout out for having gotten this award, I know it's going to be the most important award that he gets all year, but I'm just saying we gave it to him, and I think that's important. Okay, Doug, I'm coming back to you. What was the best event in enterprise software this year?
Hands down, AWS reInvent 2022. In a year full of half-baked hybrid events, AWS went all in on a return to reInvent as usual. Customers went all in as well. 50,000 plus, 55,000 plus flocking to Vegas, queuing up for the swag, queuing up for the keynotes. Partners were also there in force, amply rewarded with incredible show floor traffic, well-attended customer receptions and late-night parties. It was a refreshing return to pre-pandemic days and business as usual. Let the talk of COVID and recession be damned.
I got to tell you, I joined virtually and they didn't skimp there either. So they, even though they still had virtual folks, the production value was super high. So even if you weren't there live and in person, you still got to have that feeling and all that great content. So totally agree with you, Doug. Okay. This is the one where we all we all braced for it because we don't necessarily who am I kidding? We love talking about this one. This is probably like our favorite section, and it happens to be our last one. Right? Bring us home. What was the biggest tech flop of the year?
I'm going to give you 3 letters, SBF. No, just kidding. Actually, FTX. What was going on? Crypto trading desks, right? We thought they'd be fine. We thought they were insured. We thought they were regulated. What could go wrong in the Bahamas, right? I think that whole category got blown and obliterated. There's probably one left that matters, and it's probably Binance, and then probably what you do with this regulated security system. But here's what's going on, right? That category is blown. Everybody's putting their money in a cold wallet because they're scared, and I think that's going to go on for quite some time. And we'll be reading about those regulations for the next 10 years.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Ray. There you have it, everybody. Thanks for bearing with us. 13 categories, if I counted it right, in naming who's the best in enterprise software. Thanks for watching. Very much appreciated.
Well, Holger, that doesn't just wrap it up for us in this episode. Dude, this wraps it up for the year for us.
Another year of CRTV is in the can. Thank you, everybody, for watching, bearing with our shenanigans and looking.
Mostly our shenanigans. I mean, Doug and Diane, they're pretty legit, but it's our shenanigans. But thank you guys so much. We will see you in 2023. Where exactly in Las Vegas are you, and who is screaming in the background? She is like, everyone get in the line and get your bags. Like, she is the angriest Southwest employee in the entire...
I'm far away from all the gates here, so...
She was just bellowing.
Actually,
No, the cabin attendants are like, I'm not yelling. I'm not even on the clock. I don't get on the clock until I get into the damn plane. It's whoever is working the gate that's nearby you is angry. Wait, are you catching a flight out, or did you just land?
I'm on a mileage run. I need 4 more Southwest flights.
You're on a mileage run? Shut the hell up!
I want to keep my island status.
You're on a mileage haul. Oh,
yeah, $29 one-way flights. Cheapest place to go in Las Vegas. And I've never been to Las Vegas, so I have to go.
I know. Yeah, when you're doing mileage runs, for any road warrior watching these bloopers, y'all know what he's doing.
You're saying that you are wasting like 8 hours flight, 10 hours just...
It is not a waste if it means you get to keep your status. It is not a waste, Hannah.
But no, it's cold. It's freezing, so I brought a big jacket.
It's freezing? You mean it's 60?
Define freezing.
Yeah, define freezing.
Freezing is 0 Celsius. I don't know what your wacky barometer system or number system.
It's not 0 degrees.
32.
It's not 0 degrees in Vegas right now. Fact check this shit.
So that's like what, 40 degrees Fahrenheit?
Fact check this shit.
Well,
hi there. Oh, she wanted to wave. Say hi.
My new friend in Las Vegas.
What's up? What flight she working? Welcome to CRTV's blooper reel, ma'am.
You're going to be featured on Wednesday.
You're a featured guest. We should just on the credit roll, just have her name.
Unknown Southwest.
Featured guest, rockin' Southwest guest in Vegas. That's just going to be like.
Can you come here one more time? You need your name.
Oh no.
Yes, you will be. What's your name? What's your name, Christine? If you're based in Las Vegas? Oakland. So we're flying next?
We are going to... Where are we going? Oh, Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon. Are you going to sleep tonight?
Boise.
Boise. Nice.
I'm from Exotic.
Thank you for coming on our show. You give me your email, I'll send you the link to be in the bloopers.
The exotic life. That just summarized the exotic employee experience of a Southwest employee. Where are you from? Oakland. Where are you going? Eugene. Where are you sleeping tonight? Boise. Hey, down. Hey, movie woman. Oh my God. Hey, Tex, what's up, buddy? I just love how many cowboy hats are going to be walking through this episode today.
It's going to be a new record.
It's going to be a new record. Okay.
More cowboy hats than ever.
One cowboy hat would have been a record. That dude in the pink sweatshirt is going to miss his flight. That's my prediction. Just that dude.
Man, I'm behind with the live stream. Why is that such a lag? 1-1. Then we're going to penalties. Come on, guys.
I'm going to start this all over again because we're going to do it with Ray not on you.
Oh, people. 3 penalties shot and I don't know where because
live of the year, Ray, on you.
Profitability perspective.
You always have opinions and you never change them.
So true.
What?
So let's not bother with the conversation.
What conversation? What conclusion should I change?
Did we just come back to the conclusion and the annual statement of Holger's German is showing. We usually reach this point of our group conversations much later, so I'm just really proud of us all.
I don't know
Oh,
if
the
it comes
lights
over.
turn on.
Can you see the lights? The lights are on.
That's like the most pathetic Charlie Brown Christmas tree
Is
I've ever
that your actual Christmas tree? Like that's it in your house right
It's
now?
on my desk, guys. Okay, tell me what's on your desk for Christmas.
Okay, we should probably get started.
105 minutes.
What are we doing? Are we just here to shoot the shit and I don't know what are we doing? Oh Jesus! Oh God! Oh God! Holger is
The
down.
things I need to do for
Holger's
you
office
guys.
is down. Holy shit! San Diego is crashing. San Diego is falling. Everyone.
Andy, could you please sit so your head is filling the screen and not near the bottom?
Let's make our Andy impression.
Andy's energy.
Script, I'll do the first thing with Enterprise Software and then I'll leave, right? Because I have to watch the second half of Overtime.
Oh, you shut it. We're
You're
having to
sitting
hold
the
this
entire
whole
time.
thing.
Holger,
It's a damn
you left that
episode,
room.
dude.
Yeah, I gotta go watch the game too. So can we finish this?
Nobody's leaving until we're finished.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's what Hannah said. So shut it, all of you.